Dr. Z, on today's show, we are interviewing a man who is intense. He is perhaps one of the top publicists, PR experts of his time. He's a New York Times bestselling author himself. He's represented 58 Academy Award winners, 34 Grammy Award winners, 43 New York Times bestsellers. Z, how would you describe this interview with Michael Levine?
Intense, and I love the way you get him all fired up. I mean, you get him. It's like poking the bear.
On today's show, he breaks down the TIffany Theory and why broken windows are a sign of a broken business. All this and more on today's interview with Michael Levine, the great one in the world of PR. Z, I think all the listeners should put on a helmet.
Yes, strap on. Make sure no arms outside the ride and wear your safety belt at all times.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes. Dr. Z, it's not often that we have a guest on the show who's represented 58 Academy Award winners at last checked.
Wow.
Last check. 34 Grammy Award winners, 43 New York Times best-selling authors, and the likes of Barbra Streisand, George Carlin, Michael Jackson, the late, great Prince, President Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, President Clinton. This guy's been featured on Forbes, Fox News, the New York Times, the USA Today.
Wow.
Michael Levine blows my mind every time. Michael Levine, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Thank you, friend. And you have achieved that level of greatness, I believe, with this podcast that you have turned into really a national force. It's really maybe international. It's really exceptional what you've done. I've watched you build it, and it's quite something.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, we're having a hard time penetrating North Korea. Other than that,
we're having a hard time. The penetration is tough.
And it's, that's one country that we're just having a hard time getting into. So, but we had who was the basketball player? Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
We tried to have him smuggle us in, but that didn't work out so well.
Right.
So.
Well, it turns out that the North Koreans are struggling with the concept of capitalism right now. But, Michael, in this capitalistic country we live in, there's a lot of PR people, a lot of public relations people trying to have success in the field of public relations, and a lot of entrepreneurs listening that really don't know what public relations is. Could you share what public relations is all about and what that means to be a public relations expert?
Well, using an analogy that I created some years back, which I think works as a definition, I would use the analogy, or do use the analogy of gift wrapping. And so, if I gave you a present today, and I gave it to you in a box, maybe a Tiffany box, and it was wrapped beautifully, in your mind, that gift would have a higher perceived value than if I gave you the exact same gift in a box unwrapped or unwrapped with a less prestigious label. Now, that's true not because you are a psychological fool, but it's true because we live in a culture in which we gift wrap everything. And so we gift wrap our politicians.
Yes, we can.
You're fired.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
We gift wrap everything. And so we gift wrap our politicians and our corporate heads and our movie and TV stars and even our toilet paper. And so there we are. Gift wrapping is what I believe to be the best operational definition of what public relations is. And so if you have a product, a person, a service, and you want to give it value. One of the best ways you can do that is by gift wrapping it in an important public relations message. Get your story out. And we're living in a world, for better or worse, in which there is an umbilical link between credibility and visibility.
Michael, during your career, you've covered so much ground, worked with so many big people, and before we get into the broken windows as being a sign of a broken business, I really would like to ask you about, on a practical level, when you're working with an artist like a Prince or Michael Jackson. I mean, these are huge names.
Huge.
I know some of the clients you've worked with are no longer with us, and I know you also have this very like almost a fiduciary duty to not share any of the specific details of those interactions. But could you share with us what it's like to be in the presence of the man in purple, Prince?
Well, I think that, first of all, I don't want to imply that though I represented Prince for a period of time, that I spent a vast amount of time with him. I did not. Many other clients I did, but he was one I did not. Mysterious, kind of elusive guy in certain ways. But the point here, I think the greater point about greatness and what I've learned about it is that we mere mortals cannot or shouldn't judge geniuses in the same way that we judge mere mortals. They are playing a different game of life. They are often very eccentric, as we know, right? If we think about the greats, we often find that there's an eccentricity to them.
So Jesus, who is exceptional, is having a conversation with ordinary. And exceptional and ordinary always have a conflict. Anytime exceptional people dwell in the midst of ordinary thinking people, there's always going to be conflict.
And I've discovered that throughout my life and my career, that they're often quite eccentric. And so we would be unwise, I believe, to judge geniuses in the same way we judge mere mortals.
The definition of genius is an exceptional intellectual or creative power or other natural ability. A person who is exceptionally intelligent or creative, either generally or in some particular respect. So when you're working with somebody who's a genius, or somebody who is a true expert at their craft, maybe someone you spent more time with, can you share about that deep? You shared this, by the way, last year at the Thrive Time Show conference, and you talked about this deep maniacal rage or will to win they have. This just deep viral, just I'm not going to lose. That
burning
Kobe Bryant.
Maniacal rage to succeed, to create, to excel. It's not merely an ambition. It's something deeper, more primal, more intense. It's almost as if their life depended upon it. And so we can imagine, I think reasonable people can understand that when your life depends on something, you'll do just about anything to achieve that particular goal, right? And so one of the qualities I've noticed present in all super successful people is this burning maniacal rage, this obsession, if you will. And I think it's an interesting observation. At least I hope it is.
See, I totally relate to this. I remember starting my first company, DJ Connection, and people would say, "How many hours did you work on it?" All of them.
All of them.
When you started your optometry clinic, people would say, "How many days a week did you work to grow the business?" All of them. You get
all
it.
Of them. And that's why I resent, or resist, I should say. I resist, people making subjective statements like, Well, if you want to be successful, you got to work hard. Well, I would encourage against a statement like that because hard is subjective. I know people in America that think working 30 hours a week is working hard.
Thank you, Bernie Sanders.
Almost all of the wealth and much of the income is going to the top 1%.
Bernie, it's because they wake up at 3 a.m. and they work hard when the rest of the world is sleeping. This show is created for people who want to become the top 1%.
It's not hard. The kind of, particularly in the beginning, think about a rocket launch. We're just here now on the anniversary of the moon, successful landing of a man on the moon 50 years ago. Well, 80-90% of that rocket fuel was really expelled at the launch, right? A rocket launch. When you launch a rocket to the moon, you use a tremendous amount of rocket fuel in the beginning. And so if you're going to start a business of any type, right, you better be prepared in the first year or two to expend a massive amount of rocket fuel. And that means, as you well know, Clay, not a 5-day week, not a 6-day week. It's a 7-day a week.
If you want to become super successful, well, guess what? Everybody else does as well. But if you are going to achieve super success, you must understand that I have never interviewed a billionaire or a millionaire who's been able to achieve massive success by working a 40-hour work week. You're going to have to embrace the idea that you're going to have to outwork the competition.
And you don't get 2 weeks off for Christmas, and you don't get a week off for Easter.
Amen.
It's unrealistic. And so no wonder so many businesses, you know what the odds of a business succeeding over the first year, 18 months, very poor. Well, there's a number of reasons for that, but one of them is you're not willing to expend the rocket fuel necessary to launch the rocket.
Dr. Z, we're going to get in now to this concept of the broken windows are a sign of a broken business. Now, Michael, share with us about the book and what first inspired you to write a book about this subject.
Well, first of all, let's go way, 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 way back to August of 1982, in which a brilliant criminologist named James Q. Wilson wrote a theory of criminology called broken windows theory. The broken windows theory of criminology, written back by UCLA professor in 1982, a brilliant criminologist who's no longer with us. He wrote a theory that said that if you go into a neighborhood and you see a broken window or graffiti, and the authorities don't quickly repair it in the maybe 72 hours, it sends a psychic signal to the residents, the visitors, the shoppers, that the bad guys are in charge. And greater crime, more serious crime ensues naturally. And so if you go into a neighborhood and there's a broken window or graffiti and the authorities don't repair it quickly, for whatever reason, it sends a signal to the community that the bad guys are in charge, and you can pretty much bank on carjackings, rapes, murders quickly ensuing, because that is the progress of the broken windows theory of criminology. So all I did, and this theory, by the way, this theory of criminology was not very well known except within the law enforcement arena. It was very well known in law enforcement, but not very well known amongst consumers. And it became much better known when a mayor of a major American city used it effectively to restore sanity to a terribly, terribly broken and dilapidated city. And that mayor's name was Rudy Giuliani, and that city was New York. And it just so happened that I had been born in New York. And so I watched Mayor Giuliani use the broken windows theory to restore New York to sanity after a period of time in which New York was really, really in trouble. And I wondered about this theory of criminology, if it could be used in business. And so what I did is I took it, I dragged it into business. And I found that in exactly the same way that the broken windows theory works in criminology, so too it works in business. And so if you go on an airplane, for example, and you see a coffee stain on the tray in front of you, the tray that pulls down, and there's an unclean coffee stain on the tray, it sends a psychic signal to your brain that maybe the maintenance of the engines isn't being done too well. If you go into a restaurant and the bathrooms are filthy, it sends a psychic signal to your brain that just perhaps the kitchen isn't too clean. And so I wrote a book 12 years ago that became, I guess fortunately for me, a big business bestseller, and it has been a bestseller for all 12 of these years, still remains internationally so. And it just talks about how little details matter a lot. And, of course, I think the message is more important than ever because we're living in a culture in which people are not paying attention to the details, particularly the human relation details. We're trying to automate everything. And so I think the broken windows theory is very, very, very important for business owners.
Z, I would like for you to talk about a theory. I don't know if you've ever written a book about it or really penned a title, but I would call this the unthrown away box theory. Now, we're going to edit the show. So, Z, if you're a man who you're very careful with your language, but should you feel the need to set, in the way, Michael, that cats love boxes, Dr. Z hates boxes. So when a box gets shipped to one of his businesses, and the contents of the boxes are taken out of the box, and the boxes are left somewhere, Z, within viewable area, in the viewable area in the back room, wherever.
I feel my blood pressure rising
and you
already.
can sense, and Z, why do you hate boxes that are not thrown away after the contents have been purposely put in the right place? Why do you hate it when boxes are not thrown away?
Even worse than that, when people just kind of they use the box, they almost live out of the box. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a broken window. When people walk down the hallway and they see an open box.
It bothers you.
It bothers me because the goods should be put where they need to be put. The box needs to be taken out. So it's lazy, it's sloppy, it's exactly what it is.
I agree with
a broken window.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the doctor. I think he's totally right. And I think it is a symbol to people, whether they recognize it or not, of laziness, of sloppiness, of carelessness. And it sends a signal to human beings that I think is powerful, which is if they can't throw away a box, what else can they not do? And so I would say that what he is describing is totally consistent with the broken windows theory.
Absolutely. And as a business owner, you really have to go in with a set of eyes every day and look around your business.
Every day.
From the start to the beginning, not the back. Don't go in the back door like you always do, your little private office entrance. You've got to go in the front door and actually walk through it with a new set of eyes because you're looking for those broken windows, right, Michael? I mean, that's a beautiful analogy and a great picture for a business owner. Yeah.
You should be if you want to succeed and if you want your business to be around in 3 to 5 years, you better be doing it. And you better be doing it in all kinds of ways. Don't just do it when the staff's around. I mean, one of the things that, I would encourage somebody like perhaps a dentist to do, or a doctor, is call your office. Just go outside and call your office and watch the 8, 10, 12 rings. Now, commonly, I'm of a certain age that I've been calling doctor's offices all my life. And you used to call a doctor's office, and it would maybe be picked up in 2 rings or 3 rings. Today, common, 12, 10, 8, 15 rings. And very commonly, after the 10, 12, 15 rings, the first thing you hear is, not hello, can you please hold?
Correct.
So this is not a way, if you're calling your dentist, your lawyer, your any skilled, your CPA, and you have to wait 12, 14 rings to get somebody to pick up the phone, and the first thing you hear is, can you please hold? It's not good. And I think that inspecting yourself, holding yourself to a high standard, and declaring war, if you will, these are not problems that need to be handled. These are problems that need to be obliterated. They need to be destroyed. You can't handle certain problems. You have to destroy them.
Z, in this book, which you would love, by the way, in the book, there's a lot of great chapters here. But Michael, I want to kind of tee it up. I'll put the ball on the tee, and I'm going to let you unleash your inner Tiger Woods here. Okay, so chapter 3 of your book is titled "Obsession versus Compulsion." What is this chapter all about at its core?
Well, I mean, maybe it's about a bunch of things, but one is, if you are sending signals as a business owner, you're sending signals to your customers all the bloody time, whether you recognize it or not. So, for example, let's imagine in Los Angeles, where I live, you go to a restaurant, and very frequently you have a valet parking person. There isn't much parking here in LA, so that's common. Not as common in other parts of the country, but it is in LA. Now, if the parking attendant for the restaurant is usually what's called a concession. Usually the restaurant has hired a company to park the cars, right?
Right.
But the problem is that the customer doesn't delineate the difference between the parking attendant and the restaurant staff, right? They think the experience of going to a restaurant begins with the parking attendant. And if he's rude or cold or unkind or unwelcoming for any reason, right? Often because he may not speak the language, then it creates a feeling around the dining experience that's negative. Now, if you go in and you tell the manager of the restaurant about that, and the restaurant manager says, well, that parking attendant doesn't work for us, he's a concession, at some point, that's a bad answer, because the experience is the same. You have to have an obsession with what Jeff Bezos from Amazon calls a frictionless experience, and radical, notice the use of the word radical hospitality. If you want to win today, one of the guiding elements that is so necessary is radical hospitality and a war against friction. And if you don't do that, you are going to find yourself, as many business owners have, as a casualty of Amazon, because Amazon has created a very frictionless experience.
Now, in chapter 5 of your book, you talk about expectation versus reality. Educate us about what you mean by this, and then I'll let Z interrogate you about it.
Yeah, I think that, look, every person, every customer yearns to feel valuable, special, important, right? The expectation bar of every human being is, please make me feel important, right? And if in our increasingly automated age, right, we don't do that, then we create friction and unhappiness because human nature, the technology has changed the world greatly, but it hasn't changed human nature an ounce. People 50 years ago wanted to feel valuable and important, and today they want to feel valuable and important. And a lot of modern life has been a war at making them feel unvaluable and unimportant.
Z, I love having guys like Michael on the show. I love having guys like Wolfgang Puck on the show. I love having John Maxwell. I love having people who are the best at what they do.
Wolfgang Puck, by the way, I know Wolfgang Puck. And Wolfgang Puck, as you know, may be America's most successful restaurateur and chef. He understands in a very, very, very primal way the concept of radical hospitality. It begins right out the front desk. That maitre d', it may be if the chef is the most important person in a restaurant, who's the second most important? Could be the maitre d'. Could well be the maitre d'. And so Wolfgang Puck is a great example, a shining example of radical hospitality.
See, I want to list off because I want to put Michael in this category, and then I want to let you interrogate him here. Think about this. One of the best hotel chains you can think of is Ritz-Carlton. We've had the founder of that company, Horst Schultz, on our show. You think about Walt Disney World, the top
By the
resorts.
way, can I just mention something about Ritz-Carlton?
Yeah.
I am told, I'm not a Ritz-Carlton employee, right? But I am told that every Ritz-Carlton employee carries in their uniform a little card, a little pledge card. And the card says, I've never seen one of these cards, but I've been told about, been mentioned to me. We are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen.
There it is.
There you go.
Isn't that interesting? We are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen.
It's the expectation that you guys have.
That's something.
You guys have this expectation level. The Wolfgang Puck has his expectation level. John Maxwell, the top leadership expert, he has a certain expectation.
Brilliant.
Ross Golan, head of the top 40 music industry right now, certain expectation. Ritz-Carlton, certain expectation. See, we got the founder, the owner of the Houston Rockets will be on our show. Certain expectation level. Craig Rochelle, top pastor in America.
And here's what the expectation level isn't among any of them, right? Mediocrity.
That's what I'm saying. So you don't put up with
for
it.
Shortcuts. Too many Americans own businesses, right? Too many Americans in every area of life are looking for shortcuts. And I think that one of the things that I most respect about you, Clay, and your show and your whole way of being in the world is that you have been at the forefront of a counterculture that has been a war against shortcuts. There are no shortcuts, you jackass, and you shouldn't be looking for one or several, or you shouldn't be in business. If you want a shortcut, go work at some minimum wage job, which, by the way, is a dignified way of earning a living if you choose. There's nothing wrong with working at a minimum wage job. I think many people who work in minimum wage jobs are providing a very honorable service. But if you don't yearn to stay for the rest of your life in a minimum wage job, even though there's plenty of dignity in doing that, then you have to stop looking for shortcuts.
Z, I just got both of you guys warmed up now. I give you the mic, Z.
Well, you know what we teach in our the Thrive Nation. If anybody out there listening, we talk about mystery shopping your competition, and I think more importantly, you need to mystery shop your own freaking business.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
Yes.
But you got to mystery shop. I think the mystery shopping is great. I would invite it to be done in 3 tiers. Because when you hire a mystery shopping company, right, you're relying on the mystery shopping company. If you ask friends and family to mystery shop, you're relying on friends and family. If you mystery shop, you're relying on you. I personally recommend all 3 approaches. I think it's so vital that you mystery shop yourself and your competition, but yourself, that you do it on 3 tiers. Hire a company, and here's a great opportunity. Every customer who's ever complained, if you could recruit 50% of every customer who's ever complained about a product or service that you produced, and recruit them to be a mystery shopper for you, you'd be in great shape.
Z, I'm back to you, my friend.
I tell you, Undercover Boss, I hear that show. The concept of it is so powerful, because it helps you find all those broken windows in your business, right, Michael? Yeah. And then once you find them, you have to be just aggressive and radical in fixing them.
I want to bring this up.
Radical, more than aggressive.
More than radical. You guys are both radical.
Yeah, you have to kill them with the same. You have to go after them with the same intensity that the Navy SEALs went after Bin Laden.
Come on,
There's no negotiating. There's no, well, maybe you'd like to discuss this. Could you step outside? No. It's a war, and one side is going to win and one side's going to lose. And too frequently, the side of shortcuts is winning in today's world.
Now, Michael, I'm going to ask you to refrain from answering as I irritate you second by second, and then Z will pile on, and we're going to tee up the question to you. So it's going to be a gradual irritation, okay? I'm just going to throw out different names, certain trends, let it just happen, and Z, you kind of one-up me. Here we go.
Okay, here we go. This will be fun.
It's overtly casual. It's an attitude of 10 minutes late. It's an idea of living with your parents until you're 30. It's an idea of Bernie Sanders. It's an idea of lowering standards. It's an idea of being consistently inconsistent. It's about focusing on how we feel instead of getting things done. Z, it's this attitude of mediocrity.
You didn't do what you needed to do, but you gave it your best shot.
And now someone like that sitting with you now, okay, they're 26. Their parents are out of money. They can't support them anymore. They got kicked out of their house. They're sitting right in front of you. They're 26 or 27 years old. They just turned 27, Z.
Okay.
They're meeting Michael Levine at the Starbucks. And they've got their baseball hat on, turned around backwards. They have a shirt on that says, okay, or awesome. It says awesome. Hashtag awesome. It says hashtag awesome.
Yeah.
And they're going, bro, I just don't understand why I'm not having super success, bro. If they actually asked you that question and they were being sincere and they wanted you to straighten them out, what would you say to that person, Michael Levine?
Well, first of all, I have to be honest with you. In answering that, I would tell you that if I got that person at age 27.
27, yep.
I would say that the odds of the potential odds for a breakthrough at 27 are massively lower than, say, 18 or 20. If you've gotten yourself to a place of distress and you still haven't figured it out by 27, it's not impossible to turn it around, but it's damn hard. So I guess rule number one is, son, if I'm talking to a 27-year-old son, I wish I had gotten you 10 years ago. And you wish, if turning your life around were important to you, you wish I had gotten to you 10 years ago. Because the reality is, by 27, it's awfully, and if you cross 30, it's over. I mean, it's just too late. It's just too late, absent a miracle. The second thing I would say to a 27-year-old in a Starbucks is, if I don't hear from this nice person a level of desperation, almost begging, right? Then I become even more convinced that the person is not ready. If they're asking me a question with very casual inquiry, right, as opposed to a pain that would be synonymous to a massive throbbing toothache, then I would say to the nice person, you're probably not ready yet.
What if he stands up? What if he stands up straight? What if he sits up straight now? Okay, he says, "Sir, you're connected with me," and he's taking notes now. Okay, so all of a sudden you get that energy. You sense this person is actually waking up. Now and you said, "Hey, can you turn your hat around, please? Could you show some respect here?" He turns around on the hat, and the hat says Bernie Sanders. What do you say?
I'd say, son, I think I can understand. I can understand the frankly, the immature allure of free stuff. I get it. Who, by the way, who wouldn't want free things, right? And particularly young kids. I mean, kids, remember, any parent knows that a child, when you take a child to Disneyland, first 10, 12, 14 years of life, who pays for the Disneyland ticket? Well, the parents do. The kids don't pay. And so the definition of maturity for a young person may be the day in which they recognize that Disneyland is not free. Right? The day in which they go to the entrance of Disneyland and the gentleman at the front desk, a man or woman at the front desk says, that'll be $108, and mommy and daddy don't pay. So I understand that young people, college students, are very, very seduced by
the man worth more than $1 billion, Peter Thiel, who's one of the venture capitalists behind Facebook. He was actually the first venture capitalist behind Facebook, has this to say about formal education.
And if the tuition is 4 times as much, which is roughly what they've risen since 1980, adjusted for inflation, you'd end up with a very different set of questions. We now have $1.3 trillion of student debt. It was only $300 billion in 2000. It's gone up by something like a factor of 4 in nominal dollars in 15 years. And so I think at that level we have to ask far more critical questions about, is the education worth the debt that people are assuming? And it's a very pernicious form of debt because under President Bush 43, they rewrote the bankruptcy laws so you can never get out of student debt even if you go personally bankrupt. And you pay off your student debt for the rest of your life. And if you haven't paid it off by the time you're 65, they garnish your Social Security to pay off your student loans. And so I think it's sort of incumbent on us to ask some very tough questions about how well education is actually working, because it has taken on these very different roles, and because of the enormous costs that are being attached to it. The economic sort of description of it is often, what kind of a good is education? Is it an investment? So you're going to college as an investment into a future, or is it a consumption good where it's like a 4-year party? And these are 2 very different kinds of things. And often, when I started my critique of colleges, I thought it was sort of a weird superposition of an investment good and a consumption good, which is why people were confused. So they thought they were investing, but they were really consuming. But I've now come to think that it's actually a combination of 2 things that are much crazier than those 2 even. It's, on the one hand, it's the main reason people go to college is actually as an insurance product, where people go to college because they're scared of falling through the very big cracks in our society. And so even if it's not a great investment, it's still important to buy insurance. This is why parents save up so much money to send their kids to college, and then why the kids take out so much in student debt.
This con game of free stuff. I get it. It's part of the youthful romantic fantasy thinking. But it's utterly and completely immature and idiotic. There is no free. Now, certainly you shouldn't get much past 15 or 16 to know that. Hopefully your parents have drilled that into, and society, you'd like to think that society has drilled that into your head by 15 or 16. If you're floating around between 18 and 22 in college, listening to some very well-educated jackass college professor trying to get you hooked on the crack pipe of free stuff, and you haven't figured out that that's a bad plan. It's a bad plan, one, because it doesn't work. It's a bad plan because it doesn't exist.
Yep.
Right? And so, but what happens to people is they go through college, usually educated by people who have a very, very, very radical, a liberal view of the world, right?
People that can't compete in capitalism typically teach capitalism on the college campuses.
Right. They hate the very. It's as if when you go to college today, it's as if you're paying money, sometimes $40,000-$50,000 a year. And imagine if you paid $50,000 a year to go to a school.
Yeah.
And the professor said, "You see that traffic light up there, son?"
Yep.
Or young lady?
Yes. It.
That green means stop. And that red means go. Now, how stupid would you be to pay $50,000 a year to hear that green means stop and red means go? I mean, a bright 10-year-old would say, "Mom, that's ridiculous. Green means go, not stop." Right? And yet, college students are being educated in America today with rules of life that are equally stupid to red means go and green means stop. At least as stupid. Maybe stupider. And so this free stuff, this free, who's going to pay for? You hear it all the time. It's just a bunch of hustlers, politician hustlers, trying to get you hooked for purposes of their own aggrandizement or success, votes. They're trying to buy votes with fake money, with monopoly money.
But we all grew up loving Robin Hood.
And if you're not bright enough to figure this out, you really are a jackass.
We all grew up loving Robin Hood.
Jackass, but you're a jackass.
No, okay. Now we have a guy on this show I wanted to bring on
and
here.
It's a bad plan for you. See, you're going to be damaged by it. If you start believing this crap, Bill Gates isn't going to be damaged. Right?
Right.
Mark Zuckerberg's not going to be damaged. You're going to be damaged.
Right. I have a guy on our show right
Bernie
now.
Sanders isn't going to be damaged. Elizabeth Warren's not going to be damaged. AOC isn't going to be damaged.
AOC already is damaged. I call you out. AOC is damaged. She's brain damaged.
Well, listen.
Her mind does not work. She's ridiculous.
She may well believe it. I don't try to judge people's motives. And I do believe that many people who have certain views raise powerful questions. These are powerful and fair questions that are being raised, but the answers are free college, free healthcare.
Free.
By the way, Clay and Dr. Z, 2 weeks ago, I saw something on television that was the single most stunning thing I ever saw in my life, other than Lee Harvey Oswald being assassinated on live television. Now, I was 9 years old when I saw Lee Harvey Oswald get assassinated on live television. Most astonishing thing I ever saw in my life until about 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, at a debate, there were 10 men and women at a Democratic debate. right? This is not a political statement. This is just a fact. And the 10 men and women, including Vice President Biden, who, as far as I know, is a good man, 10 men and women were asked, raise your hand high, please, if you are in favor of free health care for illegal aliens. All 10 raised their hands, 10 out of 10, and
they're not aware of how to do
when
math.
they
That's
raised
the problem.
them, there was applause in the audience.
Shunda.
I literally couldn't believe it. I could not
Well, hey, listen,
believe it.
you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. We have a guy on the show, believe it or not. I got him right here inside the studio. He's a 21-year-old man. He just turned 21. He is a married man. Married man, 21 years old. He saves, Andrew, what percentage of your income do you and your wife save?
50%.
50% of their income. His wife manages one of she manages all 3 Elephant in the Room men's grooming lounge stores. He started off working with me at what age, Andrew?
17.
And you get to work what time every day? Because the challenge is to beat your boss to work. What time do you get to work every day?
3:55.
3:55 every morning. This crazy guy
Is
gets
that AM or PM?
AM.
Oh,
AM.
wow.
So this guy, Andrew, you are on the show. You are an anomaly. You are a Michael Levine kind of guy. I know he would love you. I know he would not. I seriously know he would love you. What questions do you have for the great one, the leader of the PR industry, Michael Levine? What questions do you have for him?
Absolutely. So you were talking about going through your store and physically walking through and looking for the broken windows and seeing what's wrong and fixing it.
Here we go.
What are some practical ways? What is an example of walking through the store? What are you looking for and how do you fix it? Do you have any examples that you could walk through?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to look for very, very innocuous things like paint chips, right? Isn't that interesting? You look through a store and you say, my goodness, when was this? Look at everything. Look at it with eyes. Go into the bathroom. Is there a faucet that's broken? A paint chip? An area that needs to be painted? My goodness gracious! If you're inviting people into your business, your store, and there's a spot on the carpet, my goodness gracious, that's a broken window, friend. You have to be mindful of everything because all of these things are sending psychic signals to your brain, to your customer's brain, about how you live your life, how you conduct yourself. These are very, very, very important things, and they're not being paid attention to, which is why so many businesses are failing.
Andrew, final question. Yep. You get to ask Michael Levine, the great one, the man who has represented Michael Jackson, President Clinton, President Bush, Pizza Hut, Nike, companies we know, Z. Andrew, you get the final question.
Absolutely.
And no matter what you ask, Z will one-up you with the secret final question.
Oof.
And we'll let Michael get back to being awesome out there in California.
Got it. So you'd mentioned that peak age where most people should have or do have a breakthrough is around 18 to 21, around that age.
I would like to think that you have a modestly good view of the way the world works by age 18. If you're going into college, you should have a modestly good view. You should be able to know that when a politician says, I believe in free college, you should know that's horse because there is no free. Somebody's got to pay for it. There is no free. If you don't know that by 18, I'm concerned. If you don't know it by 22, I'm scared. If you don't know it by 27, I'm petrified. It should be so fundamental to who you are. It's like it should be as fundamental to you as that gravity exists. I mean, what it should be.
It blows your mind.
It isn't.
It blows your mind, Michael. So what do you do personally when someone walks up to you and says green light means stop and red light means go?
Yeah.
I mean,
first
metaphorically
of all,
speaking,
I don't try to convert. I personally am not in the business of trying to convert too many people that don't want to be converted. If you want to believe in stupid stuff, That's your prerogative,
But
right?
what if I
You're
hired
free
you?
to believe.
What if I hired you as my PR manager? Said, listen, I want to convince the United States of America that
if Cortez hired you to be the PR person.
If someone hired you and paid you copious amounts of dollars to become involved in this, well, how would you do that? What would you do? What would you say? Is there anything?
Well, my principal message is in the broken windows theory is that little details matter. And there's no shortcut through the firewalk. You cannot find looking out for broken windows requires extra time, requires getting to your business early, staying late, working nights, working weekends. It's not easy. But who the hell ever told you it was supposed to be easy? Which idiot sold you on a plan that said that owning a business was supposed to be easy? It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be challenging. It's also supposed to be fulfilling and profitable, but it's not supposed to be easy. And so there it is. So it is, and so it goes. So thank you for letting me share some of my ideas with your hopefully interested audience.
Michael Levine, I thank you so much for being on the show today. If you're a socialist or a communist, I'm sorry that you're wrong. But hopefully you find a different podcast. The book is called Broken Windows, Broken Business, How the Smallest Remedies Reap the Biggest Rewards. His name is Michael Levine. That's Levine. Throughout his career, he has represented some of the biggest names, including 34 Grammy Award winners, 43 New York Times bestsellers, 58 Academy Award winners. Check out his book on Amazon or everywhere that great books are sold. Michael Levine, thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. I'll talk to you both soon, and I look forward to coming to visit you for your great event that I think is in, if I'm correct, is in December. Am I getting that right?
That's right. December. Michael Levine.
It's a really exceptional event. I was very, very excited to be in a room with a couple hundred people who are not buying into the nonsense of our time. So it's a pretty exceptional event.
Well, have a great day, my friend, and enjoy that California weather that I know you pay for with your taxes.
Will do. Bye.
Bye. Take care, Michael.
See, I don't think this show needs an exclamation point, but we like to end each and every show with a boom. Are you prepared to bring the boom?
Yes, sir.
Andrew, are you prepared to bring the boom?
So ready.
Here we go. Without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom.